as I said before, I'm going to be alluding to a couple of things that I developed, say, for example, augmented reality. So I'm going to talk about how this could possibly change the way we start dealing with, say, planning process. And I'm going to show you a couple slides on that. But basically, as we all know, workflows are all going digital. So with that, I'm just going to do this. And let's hope all this... Sorry. Okay, so I'm just going to restart my PowerPoint. Sorry about that. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so there we go. So hopefully you guys can make this out a little bit more, but I want to talk about just basically linkages and using digital tools, because the reality is that when I was a kid, my grandfather had a house on the Danforth, and my parents, living the Canadian dream, bought a place way out in suburbia. And I had a school, sorry, I didn't have school. I went to school in downtown Toronto, St. Michael's Choir School, so I was taking the TTC since I was about 8.5 years old. So you can imagine that that's the kind of awe and fun that I had taking the subway. And it was always interesting, you'd kind of get lulled to sleep as the subway rocked back and forth, but then every so often you'd hear these things. You'd hear people talking to each other. You'd see there's a certain level of engagement on the TTC. Sorry guys, I will not be talking about streetcars because I never took them. My parents would rather me go underground and see the subways than actually see the streetcars. But you can see it was always about these conversations and this engagement among people, right? Whereas in today's era, what I'm seeing, and I was taking the subway last night as I had to go back and do my presentation again, going off to Ryerson, I noticed something very interesting, and it's probably just been pervasive all this time, but I never picked up until last night when I realized that there was absolute silence. And I was like, wait, there's a Pride festival, there's North by Northeast going on, and it was a dead quiet subway. And I realized it was because of this. Not those specific people, but that everyone was just in on their own cell phones, enjoying themselves and engaging. And it's not to say that we've now become a bunch of, I believe, Ed, during lunch, we talked about sociopaths. We're not becoming sociopathic, we're actually coming together, but online. And basically, we're talking about all these different methods of engaging, not only the general social realms, but also the public realm through the digital environments. So going forward, I just want to talk about the future, right? What Reiko talked about was how architects operate, and maybe with a little bit more of a shorter-term vision than, say, planners, but architects design things for the future. There's a certain optimism. So what we see here, again, this is outside of my home territory in Ryerson, we see a whole bunch of buildings going up, and we design so that there is a better future. And we try to envision that. And the way we operate in generating all these nice, pretty pictures is we have to use digital tools. We have to use 3D modeling programs. We have to use digital fabrication. It's no longer the case that we're doing things solely by sketching. Certainly that's a part of the process, nor are we just going to manual drafting. What we're doing is we're using digital tools to ensure that we actually create these amazing visions, okay? And the reality is that if you go to talk to anybody, I mean, even for yourselves, we're dealing with a digital age where home is pretty much your suburban community up there. School and play and all these other things are now being virtualized, right? Such that home is basically wherever your computer is, and doing research is basically just going online and searching, and play is just basically a combination of actually going to certain destinations, but also engaging and setting that all up virtually. So what I'm going to talk about is just jumping quickly into the digital realm where everyone now is using digital tools. And in order to get up to speed with that, specifically for architecture, there's a huge learning curve. And what has to happen is that they have to pick up a lot of software. So, bear with me a little bit. So in order to get those high school students to that level of being able to create those 3D images as well as amazing renderings, we have to allow them to give tutorials. And rather than waste their time having me drone on about clicking certain buttons to actually execute certain commands, what we've done now is I've created a bunch of tutorials so that students can actually take advantage of their commutes, because the average Ryerson student commutes, well, I mean, I just talked to someone who's on the actual commuting campaign, but we're talking about lots of minutes a day spent in commutes. And that's where there's an educational opportunity where students can actually learn how to use that software. So they're learning how to model everything from terrains to buildings to the most complex of forms. And that's what first years are doing. So you can imagine that what Reiko was presenting earlier, that's just the tip of the iceberg, because all of that stuff is going to be well within the capacity of a very young student. And I'm pretty sure you're hiring students right now that are doing exactly that. And that allows them to do a whole bunch of things, including iterative designs, so that we can quickly just create those designs and put them into some sort of context. The image that I showed you earlier, that was a rendering. And of course, there's a lot of things that we can do with Photoshop, right? As all of you guys are very much aware currently. And because of that, even the most photorealistic rendering, as you can see here, we can go from before and we can go into after shots. All of those things are really great, except for the fact that they're all deceptive. The reality is that that's one specific perspective. And even in animations that you see in those new and home kind of channels and infomercials, you'll still find videos are very much choreographed to showcase a specific type of idea. So then we look fast forward a little bit and we see these new technologies that are available. And this is what kids are playing with. This is 3-4 years old technology, augmented reality, where kids are playing with various systems to take their designs and actually make them into some sort of hybridized reality, right? We're making a big deal again about virtual reality, but the fact of the matter is that we've actually gone beyond that. The fact that all of the production on a construction or a design project is pretty much in the computer makes it even more amenable to use tools like augmented reality to basically take projects and actually give them that ability to be more accessible, right? It was funny, I've done a couple of projects with Michelle and with the WBCA, and this is a very active community. And it's not a surprise to me that people are interested in every single thing that's going on. However, not everybody has that architectural background to understand drawings. You showed a whole bunch of images of cross-sections of streets, and for a lot of people, that's not necessarily the most accessible, right? And certainly, there's a certain romanticized notion about the Lauren Harris paintings that you get, but now we get an opportunity for the general public to engage. So just very quickly, this is an augmented reality project where, again, students are generating their designs on the computer, and these are first year and second year and third year projects that I just want to show you. Right? Here's a demonstration of an entryway as well as a building, and very quickly we can take these scale models of a site context and just quickly pop down and see how density would change if we were to put down these QR tags, as you saw me play with at the beginning of this presentation, throughout that physical model. Better yet, we have the opportunity to also engage at one-to-one scale. So that here's one of my research assistants just going on site and scanning out, and this is using the prototype of this tool, to see an entrance. Okay, and you can see that very quickly, looking on screen, you can see that there's a little code right there by the entranceway, but the reality is that that's what that person is seeing on the screen. And what's better is he can go in real time and see that thing visualized at full scale. So you can imagine, as we move forward, this technology is available so that, say for example, there's that new condo development that's going up on St. Clair, and you guys actually want to see it? Sure. Reiko could show nice renderings, right? We saw a bunch of nice images, but wouldn't it be nice to also see a virtualized model on an existing city model, and then you could actually see how things work. Better yet, maybe you could see how it goes at full scale, and I'm going to show you that in a moment too. So very quickly, you can imagine that sometimes people don't understand the complexities of urban design guidelines. So as you can see on the side here on the right, there is a very complex and convoluted patchwork of a map that showcases densities and types of occupancy. But the reality is that if you had or even if architects who are allegedly experts in this, had, say, virtualized models that actually showed in 3D the boundaries and the constraints, that you could actually superimpose them on a design. As you can see here, the students are quickly realizing that the student has made a building that's overstepping not only the height requirements, which could also get amended, but it's actually going over the sidewalk or the build-to conditions. And that's probably more evident when they do that in 3D, okay? At the same time, you can also then see various proposals. So in this case, I have various students' designs presented, and we can just quickly get them off the computer, put onto this base model, and see what they look like relative to each other, and also on the site itself. And that's the thing that, again, this community is really interested in, I suspect. I mean, I've never seen a more active community. So you can see that's what's going on right there. We can actually compare various designs at the same time. And as I described earlier, we can also, with approvals from the police department, we can also get the ability to go and see on site what people's buildings look like. So you can actually just quickly jump in front and put this bigger QR code, and as long as you don't do anything stupid, you can actually visualize your building at one-to-one scale. This was taken unfortunately, right after the Boston bombing, so they were really paranoid about people just mysteriously gathering on a Sunday morning on an abandoned site, and I was trying to get my research assistants to get this documented, and it just happened to happen this way. But better yet, you guys could actually see, again, the things at one-to-one and see investigations on how this thing might work. You can also put this thing, say, on if your neighbor has an abandoned site and you want to see how his renovation to his garage might work and how it impacts your vision to, say, adjacencies, this is no problem. You can just get this set up so you can actually see this thing at one-to-one as opposed to that scale model. So this brings me to the Discover St. Clair, basically moving backwards. So if I was talking about the future, now I'm going to talk a little bit about the past. So what we're dealing with now is, if at the beginning of this I talked about the empowerment with digital tools, whether it's your handheld device or the augmented reality stuff that I showed you, let's just go back and use these tools to look backwards. And this is just the kind of ideal of what would happen, that you could actually see in real time what's existent now, and then you could also see what was there in the past. And that's the kind of drive behind the initial architecture app that I developed, which is basically a database that allowed you to get historical information on notable architectural landmarks. And then you could also have an archive of, say, information about who the architects were, when renovations happened, or even get images of what was there on site before, or even access interior images. So you can see very quickly, this is the base model of the original architecture app. It was originally used for just understanding precedents. Because again, Ryerson University is a commuter university where a huge percentage of the students come from the suburbs. And they're really not ignorant, but they're just not aware of a lot of the architectural landmarks and historical value in a lot of the buildings that surround them. So what you can see here is we used it originally as a design precedent tool, but then we started using it also as a tool to integrate in, say, structures courses, where the information that was created, again, using the wiki model of Web 2.0, students could actually create information, upload it, and pending its quality, would be approved and stay on the actual architecture app. So moving forward, this is what happened. I was approached by Michelle a few months after its release, and she was very interested in having this really active community engage this, because she wanted to serve as a testament not only to the 100th celebration of Witchwood Barnes and the TTC, but she also wanted to talk about just the rich history and the rich community that we had here. So moving forward, we created the actual app, and it outlined more than just simply the architectural significance. We basically redid the whole thing from the ground up to allow for notable landmarks, notable people, notable tours. So let's take a look at that very quickly. So as you can see, if you click on the landmarks tool, you have an array of projects to select from. So this is basically viewed on an iPad, so it's just nice and large. Again, you have the landmarks are all available to you. You can just click and select, and you can see not only what was on that site before, but you can also see its development throughout time, and also see some original illustrations, right? And that's the stuff that would be really nice to have, so that you can see the rich history behind any given site. So you could walk to any project location and actually find out what's there. Moving forward, if my hands are fast enough, I'm okay for time so far? Okay, just want to make sure. So moving forward, you can also get not only images, but videos as well. So for example, in Casaloma's case, we happen to have a video, and ideally volunteers in the community would support this with more content, but in this case, we've got a video attesting to Casa Loma. So you can see it's quite robust in terms of the media that's available to you. So the mobile device becomes a portal to access this rich database of information. Going back to the other features of the actual app, we have things like, oh, what's he going to pick? He's going to pick, oh, tours. Okay, so in this case, we've got tours. So if you wanted to have, and tomorrow there's a great tour at 10:30, but there's also the ability to just have a self-engaged tour, or you could actually make your own tour and have it, say submitted to the WBCA board and see if that's a good one to add to the actual app, right? So you can pick churches or perhaps even like the best hotspots to eat certain ethnic foods. Another one is, of course, checking out the people. There are notable people that are around in the community or historically that have founded significant things in this community, and this is just another way of documenting that rich history. And of course, these things are all linked together. So say, for example, you had Timothy Eaton. We could also have Timothy Eaton's bio, but then it could correlate to the church as well as to perhaps, yesterday we found out that, I can't remember which hockey player was married there, or sorry, Billy Bishop was married there, something like that. So that's pretty significant. At the same time, we can see timelines to see what's going on at any given era. What major milestones in history happened at that specific point in time? What notable buildings were there? So you can see very quickly that this serves as a tool to not only go to the past, but with the stuff that I just showed you at the beginning, it also has the capacity to show what may go in the future. You can imagine that this could allow you to see proposals from Brooke McIlroy in the future of their various projects. So this becomes a big archive of information going to the past as well as into the future. So, and just one last thing, if you just want to know what was going around, you can just browse through the site using Google, leveraging Google's geopositioning portfolio of tools, and actually find where you are relative to the other hotspots throughout the specific community. And again, it links back to information. Now, what I was going to do is I was going to quickly jump back and forth, but again, just to talk about augmented reality being this ability to layer information of data that you would see in reality, so it's superimposed. And the best way to explain it is to talk about sporting events. So if you've, say, for example, understood how, say, the World Cup works, where you see the score always burnt onto the screen, what we have here is not only the live event, but also you have the information at the bottom. So if I were to indulge me for a sec, I would show you, maybe I can show you at the break, but I would be able to plug in my iPad and I could just hold it up and you'd see this. You'd see what is in front of you, but then you'd also see a series of icons about the various projects or landmarks in the context. And you can click on them and just find them. So as you moved around, you could actually identify yourself relative to where those pieces are. And the really interesting thing is that as you move closer or farther away from certain objects, they become larger or smaller so that you don't get inundated by seeing every single building around you. And again, this interface allows you to just quickly open up your portable device and just view everything and anything that you might want to find. Now, coming back to this is all about community, and I think the structure is just to ensure that we're talking about the structure of the community. And earlier we talked about just all the stakeholders that are necessary to make things happen. So just very quickly, whether it's the City of Toronto contributing, their fair share of information through the archives, whether it's the community itself, WBCA is very, very active, or even the TTC, we've got the ability to bring in information from, say, the art from the TTC stops. Certainly, we've got lots of stakeholders involved that deal with architecture, so the OAA is already involved in some of these projects. Of course, the various business improvement associations would also have some sort of level of engagement. Obviously, the library, the archive of information in the community. Institutions, of course, would be great to contribute to this. And ultimately, also the media. I was glad that someone asked about the role of the media earlier this morning. But at the end of the day, it's basically everybody who has a stake in this. And at the end of the day, these are some of the tools that allow us to connect to the past, present, and future. So with that, hopefully I did okay for the time. All right? Thank you very much.